Welcome to School Matters. I'm Joni Kopis, and today we're going to be talking about sports. Sports facilities, sport training, fitness, and also sports injuries. So today we have with us Mr. Todd Grimm, our new athletic director, Hamilton City Schools. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then we have two athletic trainers that are through a partnership with the Fort Hamilton Hospital and the Kettering Health Network, Nick Hoyler and Travis Snyder. So welcome to all three of you. Okay, well, first let's spend a little time introducing yourselves to our viewers, and we'll start with you, Todd. You're our new athletic director, been here about 3 or 4 months, so you're a seasoned veteran. Give us a little bit about your educational background and your work experience.
Sure. I got my undergrad degree at University of Toledo in education, and wanted to be a teacher and a coach for a long time, and taught for 16 years and was head basketball coach for 9 of those 16, and had the opportunity to go to Eaton High School to become their athletic director 5 years ago. And now, obviously, I'm here with the Big Blue and loving every minute of it.
Now, you said you coached basketball?
I was head boys basketball coach.
But you also coached some other sports, is that right?
Yeah, I've coached a wide variety, football, won a state championship in girls fast pitch softball.
Oh, that's great.
Started off as a baseball coach, so I've got a lot of experience coaching.
Oh, very good. So Nick, you're the athletic trainer at Hamilton High School. So introduce yourself to us. Explain a little bit about your background and your educational background, where you came from.
Originally, I'm from Oregon. Grew up in Oregon, born and raised out there, and went to Oregon State University, got my undergrad there. And then after I was done there, I went to University of Idaho, got my master's out there. And then after I was done with college, I was like, I'm going to go out east. I went to UC, worked as an intern at UC for a year, and that's the farthest east I could get. So I moved out here, and here I am. And I was at UC for a year as an intern, and then I got the job at Hamilton in 2007. So
Okay, it's about 6 years or so.
about 6 years I've been here, and then I just signed on with Fort Hamilton a couple of years ago, and so I've been at Hamilton High School for 6 years. So.
Well, welcome. You do a great job. And then Travis Snyder, you're the athletic trainer at Baden High School. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I was born and raised. I'm actually a Hoosier. Born and raised in northern Indiana, up by South Bend. Big Notre Dame football fan. I went to Indiana University. Spent the good portion of the first 10 years of my career down in Evansville, Indiana. Spent 8 years down there as director of sports medicine for outpatient physical therapy clinic. Was the director of medical operations for a professional baseball organization. My wife and I moved to Ohio, moved specifically to Hamilton in 2006. Upon moving here, I spent the last 6 years with Kettering Health Network. 5 of those years were actually with our Dayton affiliate, Southview Hospital, and the Dayton Sports Medicine Institute. The past year and a half or so, I came back to Hamilton when Kettering purchased Fort Hamilton Hospital. I was been given the honor to manage as well as help develop the Fort Hamilton Hospital Sports Medicine program, where we have established a relationship and contract with Hamilton High School, with Baden High School, as well as with Cincinnati Christian High School. I am the athletic trainer for Baden High School. It's kind of a dual role that I have as manager as well as full-time athletic trainer. Some of the other things that I've done is I've been very fortunate to be part of the U.S. Olympic Sports Medicine team for the past 10 years.
Right.
I've served internationally on 3 separate occasions. 2008 with the Summer Olympic Games in Beijing, 2010 with the Paralympic World Nationals or World Championships in the Netherlands, and then most recently in 2012 with our bobsled and skeleton teams and their world tour of Europe. So again, I was very, very fortunate to be a part of that. I also head up our law enforcement division of our sports medicine component.
Wow.
So I definitely keep myself pretty busy and all that.
Well, and it's a great partnership between the high schools in Fort Hamilton Hospital and Kettering Health Network, so we thank you both for that. Explain a little bit about that partnership.
The sports medicine is a very unique component or a service of any hospital system. We are essentially a service-based product non-billable service that is given to school systems to allow at least some on-site medical care for the athletes. It's, in a nutshell, Nick and I are ambassadors for the hospital. We represent the hospital at a, what I classically like to say, a grassroots or kind of in the trenches type of arrangement where we're working one-on-one with the athletes, working one-on-one with the parents, and trying to get the best kind of multidisciplinary care that we can get for the kids at the point of injury and throughout the process of getting back into the game and back on the field.
Well, I know you guys have crazy hours just like Todd. I mean, you're there at practices, you're there at games, so I'm sure the parents feel very comfortable knowing you're there, because if there's an injury on the field or on the court, you guys are right there, and that's got to make both the parent and the student athlete feel pretty good, don't you think?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think so, yeah. Especially in Hamilton, because everything's so close together. Like
Right.
the campus is very
Right.
easily accessed, and everything's right there. So
Yes, because there's nothing to have a baseball game or a softball game or soccer. I mean, there's 2 or 3 sports going on all the time, volleyball, basketball practice. So I guess you have a walkie-talkie and they say, Nick, I need you here.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
kind of just all over the place and
Running around.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's a great service at the hospital and catering supplies for the schools. Todd, you've been here all about 4 months, so you're a seasoned veteran. Give us your first impression of the school and its facilities.
You know, when I first came to Hamilton, not a product of Hamilton, didn't know a whole lot about Hamilton. And when I first interviewed here and first saw the athletic facilities, it was wow. And, you know, the major wow factor. You know, the things that the community has done to support the school has been fantastic.
Right.
You know, from the stadium, Virgil Swarm Stadium, to the new athletic center. You know, we have facilities that many schools are very envious of.
And you said you came from Eaton because you had just finished up a facility project there at Eaton. So explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough at Eaton that got to be part of about a $4.5–5 million facility project there as far as athletic complex. Built a brand new stadium there, 8-lane track, and just as I was leaving, we had secured a grant from Major League Baseball of $70,000 to start on the baseball softball complex. So it was a great experience, great firsthand experience, and it was a lot of fun to be part of that.
Well, and again, as you mentioned, we've got to thank the community not only for the bond issues, but also we have several facilities within Hamilton High that were publicly funded. The fitness center, which is just beautiful. Rudy Oakland's field house, his widow Irma gave money for that. The turf field that we talked about, that was privately funded. That was led by Bill Wilkes and George Johnson to get that done, because that field is used basically 7 days a week.
Yes.
So I mean, so turf field is the way to go, just for the wear and tear of the actual field.
Yeah, and you know, the other nice thing is we get the opportunity to host a lot of tournament
Exactly
games,
right,
which
right.
brings you know, people
Some
from
revenue.
out of town, brings in revenue. They're eating at our restaurants
Right.
and staying in our hotels, and you know, so it's, you know, we can really show that off, and
Yeah.
it's something we can be very proud of.
And the Bandarama, they usually bring 10 to 15 bands, and as you said, people come, and it's good for the community to open that. Athletic Center, I think we had boys basketball playoffs, and you mentioned the football field, so it's a great way to get, people outside of Hamilton to come in and see our community and our school. So,
Absolutely.
Nick and Travis, let's talk about the importance of athletic trainers. When the various injuries that you guys see on pretty much on a daily basis. What is the most common injury? Or does it depend on the sport?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the sport. With something like cross country or track, you see a lot more overuse injuries. Baseball a little bit more overuse. Football, basketball, soccer, those sports are a lot more acute injuries. So injuries that kind of happen on the field. And kind of the big buzzword nowadays is concussions, especially with football players, and soccer are the two main sports that get concussions. And we actually have a really good program at the high school, and it's bought by Fort Hamilton. It's called an IMPACT program, and it's a computerized neurocognitive test that we do baselines on pretty much all our contact sports. And then when they do get injured, then we kind of do another test on them to make sure that cognitively they're back to where they should be in terms of making sure that they can function, with thinking wise and stuff.
And that's
like
why you have
that.
the baseline, so you know where to come from. And we talked earlier too, Travis, I mean, that's something relatively new. I think you said in April that became a state law with the concussions?
It did. The state changed the rulings as far as how the process is, how it occurs when you get a concussion, as far as the protocols in terms of returning to play, in terms of the steps you have to take, in terms of getting clearance to actually get back into the game. So that was a big step and a huge step for us as athletic trainers, as well as our physician staff, to really make sure that the kids are getting absolutely everything they need, and that there's a continuity from school to school to school, that everybody's doing the same thing, that everybody's on the same page, and that was a key component to that aspect of it.
And you said all coaches and referees, umpires, they all have to take that training, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. That's all done through the Ohio Athletic Association, as well as the National Federation of High School Sports. They have to follow specific guidelines, for them, just to get that base level knowledge as far as what's supposed to happen. And the interesting thing about that law now, it puts everybody into a level of accountability. So it used to be in the past where Nick and I would be the only ones on the sidelines of a football game, and sometimes we seemed like we were the only eyes watching those type of things.
Right.
And now at this level, with the new state law, puts referees kind of at the forefront, as well as the coaching staff. So no longer is it, we'll go check with Nick or Travis and see what's going on. Now, there's no question. And if the kid looks like he is not in the best state of mind, so to speak, then they're immediately pulled from a game and allowed the evaluation process to begin and get them back to a better place.
So the awareness is more than just you two, which
Yes,
is nice.
yes,
And
that's
Nick, we were talking too about the NFLs. I know that we've read that in the last couple years. NFL players and their concussions and what happens after they retire from football.
Yeah, and they've noticed a lot of brain damage with a lot of the former players. It's pretty startling, a lot of the stuff that's going on, and just kind of figuring out exactly why that happens and how it happens. And with all the new concussion stuff, I mean, especially with the new law, I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, but we've had a lot of kids that have kind of self-diagnosed. Say, hit my head yesterday in practice, I kind of got a headache today, or I start feeling dizzy. Maybe even had a couple of teammates of kids that said, hey, so-and-so hit their head yesterday, and they've been complaining about pretty bad headaches, and they said they were dizzy, and so then we can go and we can start that process of evaluating them and getting that together. So, even though it's and with the NFL, it's something that is in the long term bad, but it's trickling down to the athletes at the high school level, and they're recognizing that it's not something to mess around with.
Right.
So.
Well, heighten the awareness for all of us. I think that's very good.
Also, if I could just interject, the one thing we've done at the high school, because when a student does get a concussion, we want to inform the teachers. So we've had Nick meet with the counselors. We've had Nick have a meeting with our teachers on opening day, just so
they can watch the student in the classroom.
Sure, so that they knew if they saw an email coming from Nick that Johnny needs a little bit more time with his homework, or we're suggesting that he doesn't read, because the reading, the trying to focus on your schoolwork, they have found makes the concussion worse. So we feel it's also important to educate our teachers as to you have a student athlete who gets injured, that it's not just that we're trying to get them out of doing their work, but that they actually need some time to heal.
So open the lines of communication so everybody's watching to make sure the student athlete's doing well.
Yeah, we added that as our protocol, actually our standard protocol for all three of our schools, that the kids would have to be check in with the counselors initially. We don't want them to fall behind academically. That's the ones that have kind of in the past fell through the cracks where they didn't tell anybody, are the ones that struggled academically because now they're several weeks behind in their schooling, and that's certainly not an area we want to go for these kids, and make sure they're staying up on the top where they should be.
So do they need a doctor's note to say I can go back and play football, or how does that process work?
That's just the first step.
Yeah.
They're not fully cleared until they have like a 5-day, I'll let Nick and Travis talk about that, but they have a 5-day window that they have to be symptom-free. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so they could eventually, miss several games.
For athletics, they have to have there's a symptom-based protocol that we follow, and it's a they're working on, getting their heart rate up and make sure symptoms don't come back, and then moving on from there, and then progressing them back into full contact. And then the new research out there now, they're showing that not only is it physical rest but mental rest as well. So, when we get a kid with a concussion, we tell them no texting, stay away from video games. Only read if you absolutely have to. No TV, stuff like that.
Right.
And then rest now is the biggest thing. So when they get home, go to sleep. Not necessarily need to be woken up every couple hours like they used to, but it's just something that is again out there and is more aware. And as we're transitioning these kids back into school and back into sports, it's pretty important. So.
And I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that companies that make helmets, they're probably trying to do better improved helmets and that kind of stuff as well, along with the other football pads and everything too, as they see these things coming down the pike.
Yeah, that's something that's big. I know. There's a football helmet out there called the Zenith helmet that was actually created by, he was in college, had a couple concussions, and he created, it's called the Zenith helmet. But just like anything else, you've got the major dollars kind of driving that. And, that helmet was real popular and real expensive a few years back. It was selling for like $325 a helmet. Whereas, a regular helmet would be, probably half of that. But now the Zenith helmet, they have started to come down in price.
Yeah.
So
it makes it a little bit easier for school districts and people to buy. And we talked about, athletic trainers are there. We do have the fitness center, which is great, to help the students. But as we said before, it just takes one bad tackle or turn of your ankle. And we were talking about, I still remember the Joe Theismann, Tim Crumry. I mean, we can remember those things, and so you prepare your body as much as you can and make it strength. But you just never know when a wrong turn or wrong twist, it could really be very, very bad.
Well, that question comes up a lot of times from our high school kids about what's the worst injury you've ever seen, and they love to hear the blood and guts type of thing. But it's the one thing that Nick and I a lot of times will tell our kids, it's not the athletes that are yelling and screaming and because from the very basic of life that they are going to be just fine.
Right.
However, it's the ones that are laying there not moving with no signs of life on the field. Those are the ones that are bar none some of the most scary. And that's where the concussions and the neck injuries and all those things and the technology that's advancing with protective equipment really comes into play for us.
And the Kentucky basketball player we mentioned too. I mean, everybody can feel that.
Louisville,
I'm sorry. Sorry, fans. But I mean, people remember those because those are, but you're right. When you watch a game on Sunday and you see these players not moving, and it just scares everybody. So no doubt about it. Todd, again, we said you've been here for 4 months, so you know what you're doing. Tell us your vision of high school athletics or Hamilton athletics. What do you see, and what do we have now? Where do we want to go?
This pretty much for me, this first year is really trying to sit back and evaluate where our programs are, where we want to go. Obviously finishing in the bottom of the league is not where we want to be.
Right.
So it's a process, just like building a specific program, a football program, a basketball program. It's a process, and I think the most important part of this process is this first year of evaluation. We're evaluating our coaches. We're evaluating. We're evaluating our facilities. We're evaluating, do they have the equipment do our kids have the equipment they need to be successful? And then from there, we sit down with the coaches and we meet, we evaluate the coaches. I talk to them about what do you need, what more do you need from me as the athletic director?
Right.
And what are you doing in the off season to prepare our kids for competition when the season is, when the games matter?
And you said we have about over 20 athletic programs that we offer?
Right now we have 25 varsity sports. 23 of those 25 are sanctioned by the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and they're the governing body of sports in Ohio. And the two that we have are boys volleyball as a club sport, and competition cheer is just not sanctioned, just not recognized as a quote-unquote sport. But we obviously see it as a very important part of our student, having the ability to participate in those activities as well.
Well, with 25 sports, again, that keeps you pretty busy, Nick. You're there all the time, I think.
Yeah, seeing a lot of kids, and it's just luckily the sports are broken down by season.
Right.
Fall's the biggest season with football and soccer and volleyball and even cross country, and then different sports have different levels of injuries.
Right.
Typically, the spring is a little lighter in terms of injury levels, but again, it's just seeing all these different kinds of sports or different kinds of injuries from different kinds of sports, and making sure that you're up to date on all the latest research and making sure everything goes.
And a lot of your high school, your student athletes, they'll play more than one sport. So you may see somebody in the fall for a fall sport, and then a winter or spring, so you know them a little bit, which I think helps too, right?
Oh, yeah.
He got hurt last week on this, but now he's playing this sport, so you know him pretty well.
It's nothing to basically treat a fall athlete for an injury and then continue to treat them throughout the winter and spring sports.
Right.
So, the key to success for Nick and I within the high school system is, especially with high school kids, for all intents and purposes, is that relationship that we establish with those kids. Without that relationship, your level of success significantly drops. I mean, it's very scary for an incoming freshman to sustain a pretty substantial injury, and it's like, now what do I do,
Right.
And so, it's we always talk about sports being 75%, mental and 25% physical. I've always tell my kids, and Nick tells them the same thing, is that when you are injured as a competitor, it now becomes 90% mental and 10% physical. Sometimes the rehabilitation part of it is kind of simple, but it's that relationship that makes us successful with those kids. Without that, it's very difficult to get those kids back to where they want to be and where the parents' expectations are and what's expected of the school as well. So.
Well, and you build the trust too, the relationship and the trust, and as you said, you get to know the parents probably just as much as you do the student. So, good. Todd, we had talked earlier, you said about, asking the coaches, what do you do in the off season? But we're also working on our feeder programs. Your high school is only as good as your feeder programs. So explain a little bit about the partnership that you got going.
Fortunately, this was in the works when I became the athletic director.
Mike Delapine, I think, created this, or had started the conversation, I guess, right?
Yes, the conversations were started by the previous AD, and the partnership with the Junior Blue Stars. The Dave Taylor is, I guess, their president. It would be his title, and they started off with their focus being with Pee Wee football. And the just kind of brainstorming and looking at ways that we can build our youth programs. The conversation went, how would you like to widen your brand and branch out into other sports? And so those conversations have started, and I think we're doing it the right way. We're not trying to jump in,
do it all
at once. We're trying to phase different sports in. This upcoming winter, we're looking to do phase in boys and girls basketball and wrestling. And the nice thing with phasing those in right now is those programs are already a little bit established. And so it's going to be a little bit of an easier, bringing them in is going to be a lot easier because they've already had some establishment there. And where we're looking for the Junior Blue Stars is, they're going to provide the organization that we want. The school, we're not wanting to control what they do. We're just wanting to help train the coaches, give them some really good drills, to work on the fundamental skills of those younger.
So what
kids.
grades are you targeting them for this?
We're actually going as young as the kindergarten.
Okay.
And any kid, anything that's going to keep the kid in something that's very positive. As growing up, I was outside all the time playing. Now I didn't have the
You don't
video
see
games.
that anymore, right?
Yeah, and now the kids are either in the house on their smartphone
Devices, yes.
or playing Xbox.
Right.
And so this is an opportunity, I hope, to get the kids more involved, more active in something very positive in their life.
Now, will this be at all 8 elementary schools? Is that how they're going to do that, or do you know yet?
Yeah, it's going to be offered. I mean, we have already at the elementary schools an intramural program, and we're not trying to take anything away from the intramural program because that has been a great program for the school district. What we're just trying to do is give kids a little bit of a higher level of competition where we can compete against kids from other school districts. Compete against kids from Lakota and Middletown and the other surrounding areas, and more of a competitive environment. Whereas with the intramurals, it's you're competing against kids from within Hamilton, which again is not a bad thing. It's a great, but it gives our kids more opportunity.
Well, that's great. Well, that sounds good. Oh, I want to thank you guys because I think this is a very important topic. We talked about the sports injuries and our new athletic director. So we welcome you to Hamilton, and we just thank you guys again for your partnership. And I will see you soon. I know we'll see you out on the field, the court, everywhere. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
And for TV Hamilton, I'm Joni Kopis, and we'll see you next time on School Matters because School Matters.